Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we'll be covering the paper pattern of the Geography Board Exam, Class 10th ICSE, and we'll also be studying some tips and tricks that you could use to your advantage in the finals of Geography Board Exam. So let's start. So the paper will be divided into two parts. We have part 1 and part 2, and part 1 and part 2 are further subdivided into various questions, and we'll be studying over them in detail. So in part 1, we have 3 questions in total, each of 10 marks. Question 1 is all about topography, and the most important points to remember in topography are 4-figure grid reference. It's extremely important. So say for example, we have the first question, and the questions that I'm referring to is the specimen paper of geography. The link of the specimen paper of geography 2023 ICSE is given in the description box below. You could click on the link and download the online copy of it and follow through whatever questions I'm going through so that there's no confusion whatsoever. Given the so this question is question number 1, part 1, first subdivision, sub-question, and the sub-question of the sub-question A. Give the 4-figure grid reference of the settlement where Ayurvedic hospital is found. Now, you will be provided a topographical map in which you have to observe in the particular grid reference that is being mentioned that the hospital is there or not. Give the 4-figure grid reference of the settlement where Ayurvedic hospital is found. You have to give the 4-figure grid reference. It's very important to know how to find the 4-figure grid reference. The second is patterns. So what do I mean by patterns? So say for example, if we look at the second question, the second sub-question, we have two parts of the sub-question. What is the pattern of drainage and what is the pattern of settlements? So patterns are also extremely important in topography and you have to memorize them quite thoroughly. Thirdly, we have scales. So we have representative scales. So say for example, if you look at the fourth sub-question, what advantage does representative fraction have over statement scales? So these are various scales that you have to be familiar with as they are often asked in topographical questions. And finally, we have symbols and features. Symbols and features is very important. So say for example, we have, if you look at the first sub-question again, name 2 man-made features in grid square 6429. So 6429 is a 4-figure grid reference and we have to name 2 man-made features. So we have to know what are man-made features, what are natural features, and what are the symbols of things such as police station, railway lines. All of these symbols will be scattered throughout the topographical map and you have to answer them only when it is told for you to answer them, right? Let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2 is simple. Okay, it is a map-based question on the outline map of India provided. So you have 10 questions of 1 mark each. You have to mark on the map the respective color scheme with the help of your coloring pencil. And then we have the final question, the question number 3. Choose the correct option. So this is basically MCQs. In total, there are around 10 MCQs. So each MCQ, as you have figured it out, it is of 10 marks. And moving on to part 2, which is all in all 50 marks. So amongst 9 questions, you have to attempt any 5 questions. Now, what I would recommend to you guys is, and it is a very important point, is that each question is dedicated to 1 chapter. So if we go over the questions one by one, question number 4, name the type of climate experienced by India. So it is evident that the question is dedicated to the chapter climate. Difference between alluvial and laterite soil. This is dedicated to soil resources. Mention any 2 characteristics of tropical evergreen forest. Name the forest which is found in the delta of the river Ganga. So this is basically a forest part of geography. Mention any 2 conditions necessary for the construction of wells. This is a question that is dedicated to water resources. We have question number 8. Mention any 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage of coal found in India. So this is mineral resources. In question number 9, we have mention any 2 problems faced by Indian farmers. This is agriculture. And then finally in question number 10, we have explain the term ancillary industry, public sector and industry. This would be the manufacturing industry chapter. And we have 2 more questions. The 11th question will be dedicated to transport and the question number 12 will be dedicated to waste management. So all in all, as you may have figured it out, every question is dedicated to 1 chapter itself. So it isn't as if that all the questions that are provided to you are mixed up, right? They are dedicated to 1 chapter each, right? Now, we will be studying which all questions you can attempt to achieve the maximum possible score that you can attain with the minimal effort required, right? So the first point that I could possibly give you is avoid studying agriculture and climate. These are heavy chapters and the tips that I'm providing to you right now, they aren't exactly applicable to everyone. So you may have your own ideas of, doing certain chapters and leaving out the rest. That is entirely up to you. If you leave out some chapters, it's not wrong. If you're doing chapters that I wouldn't recommend, that's also not wrong, but it's up to your convenience. But what I am saying is what I have found common amongst my friends also. Friends and juniors also. Most of them have left agriculture and climate and have gone for the chapters 4, 5, 6. Now, what exactly are the chapters 4, 5, 6? If you look at the syllabus that is provided to you by the board, Chapters 4, 5, 6 are soil resources, natural vegetation, and water resources. Now, these are chapters which are simply used for memorizing, right? They aren't, according to me, I didn't find these chapters interesting, and neither did the rest of my friends, right? So, they selected only one chapter to do from this, or maximum 2 chapters, right? Maximum 2 chapters. What I would recommend is only study 1 chapter. So, you could study water resources, natural vegetation, or soil resources. About chapter number 3, climate, I would recommend not studying it. It's a heavy chapter, and a lot of my friends faced difficulty in memorizing some points of it. They couldn't wrap their minds around it, and they left the chapter wholeheartedly. Right. Now, there is nothing wrong with leaving out chapters per se, because first of all, each question is, as I've talked about before, each question is dedicated to one chapter only. It's not, spread out. That one question will talk about both transport and manufacturing industries, or agriculture and waste management, etc. It's one question that is dedicated to one chapter. So even if you leave out climate, you have the option to leave out questions, right? It's not mandatory to attempt all questions. So you could leave out climate, and you could also leave out chapter number 8, agriculture. So these are 2 questions that you have left altogether. Agriculture is also a very, very heavy chapter, which I wouldn't recommend for you to memorize each of the topics and pointers that are written across the chapters. So you could leave climate and part agriculture together. If we move on to the manufacturing part of the subject, we have mineral and energy resources, manufacturing industries, and transport. Transport isn't exactly manufacturing, but I'll just categorize it into that categorization. In the third category, we have waste management, right? So in the first category, you could attempt any one chapter. In the second category, chapter 7, 9, and 10 is a must, right? Because you are selecting only one question from the the first category, right? So if you selected water resources, that's fine. You could attempt one question related to water resources, but then you have to attempt all 3 manufacturing industry questions, right? So we have mineral and energy resources, we have manufacturing industries and transport, and then waste management. Now, what I would recommend you is to study waste management, is because it's very simple and sirf ratte ka kaam hai. It's only memorization, right? It's simple and easy, and you can do it. It's 3 marks. Right. You could also try the reverse. So say, for example, if we have the manufacturing category in which we have chapters 7, 9, and 10, you could select any one of these chapters to read, or any one question to attempt related to these chapters. But in that case, you have to attempt or read all 3 chapters in the vegetation category. Right. So we have soil resources, natural vegetation, water resources, chapter 4, 5, 6, which you have to study thoroughly. Right. So that brings us to the end of the coverage of the paper pattern of the Geography Class 10th ICSE Final Board Exam. And let's move on to the tips that you could use to your advantage in the paper. So the first point is only write points according to marks. So say, for example, what I mean by this statement is, if we have question number 6, first question, mention any 2 characteristics of tropical evergreen forest. Now you have to mention only 2 points. Now it is explicitly stated in the question to attempt 2 points, but say, for example, there would be questions. I can't seem to find it right now. Yeah, so say, for example, question number 5, differentiate between alluvial and laterite soil. Now what most people do is they go ahead and write 4 points, right? Which I'm not saying is wrong, but I'm just saying that it's time consuming and you're basically wasting time, right? If you know they're correct, then you can only write 2 of them. And how do I know it's, you have to write only 2 marks, 2 points? Because the question is on 2 marks. So only 2 points. Okay, then the next point, do not write story, write points. Points is what you have to write in the paper. I've also stated this point in my previous video, wherein I had covered the tips and tricks you could use to your advantage in history board paper. If you haven't checked that video, you could check it out. But what I'm trying to say with respect to this point is that writing points helps in keeping your answer concise and to the point, right? So you have people who are under the misconception that, writing this whole biography, writing the theory of everything will help them get marks, which would work to some extent in the literature subject, not in geography and history, right? These are subjects wherein if you write points, then it helps a lot. Then we move on to our next point, divide important paragraphs and definitions into points. So what I mean by the statement is that if you're going through your textbook, right, you're going through chapters, you're going through paragraphs, big paragraphs, right? You're going through definitions. So it would be really helpful if you could divide them into points or divide them into words, right? Because sometimes it gets difficult and many people take this unnecessary burden upon themselves of learning each and every word in the textbook. The words, okay, you're not awarded marks based on the quality of pronouns you use. You're awarded marks based on the quality of your magic words, right? And the framing of your answer revolves around the magic words you use, right? So even if you don't write what's exactly mentioned in the book, the pronouns that are mentioned in the book, the or anyhow or everything isn't at this particular part of the paragraph. it doesn't matter, okay? The invigilator doesn't care. She just wants those magic words, right? So you could frame the answer however you want, but it should be revolved around those magic words. So you could reduce each and every paragraph into points of magic words and definitions into magic words, right? So, and if you can remember the important points and words, then you could frame the answer easily. It would be very helpful for you to reduce the entire cluster of the text mentioned in the textbook into concise, easy to memorize parts. Okay, now let's move on to important points to remember in various chapters. Right, so say for example, we have soil. Now, the important points to remember in soil is the texture, fertility, use, and geographic location. I will repeat that again. Texture of the soil, fertility, whether it is fertile or infertile, use, what is the soil used for, and geographical location, whether it is found in the peninsular India, whether it is found in the North India, the Ganga plains, or it is found in the Bay of Bengal plains, etc. And what is the fertility? This would prove helpful because if we go through the questions mentioned in the, which question is it? Question number 5, right? So if we go through the second, question number 5, second sub-question, name the following. This soil is sticky when wet and cracks when dry. Now, if you're a person who's familiar with the texture, as I said before, if you're familiar with the texture, then you will find this question easy to answer. Then we have, this soil is mainly used for making bricks. As I said before, if you're familiar with the use of the soil, then you could answer this question easily. Then if we move on to the third sub-question, give geographical reason for the following. Black soil is a residual soil, red soils are generally infertile. So there's a fertility question that is asked. So in soil resources, you have to study, I will mention it yet again, it's very important, texture, fertility, use, and geographical location. These are the only 4 things that you have to remember. And the questions that will be asked in the board paper, you can easily attempt that. So let's move on to our next chapter, water resources. We have structures such as wells, tanks, canals, which is very important to memorize. And we have to memorize their conditions. Condition of application, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the terrain? We have their location, which are they used in Deccan India or they are used in North India, where are they used? And their advantage and disadvantages. Move on to our next chapter. We have minerals and their resources. We have to remember states, use, and advantage of mineral resources. So say for example, if we go through the question which is related to the soil, the mineral chapter. Question number 8, mention any one advantage and one disadvantage of coal found in India. So if you, as I said before, the 3 things, I'll repeat them again, the 3 things that are a must to memorize and to learn thoroughly. So the first thing is state, that is where is a mineral found, which state is it found in India? Is it found, it would mostly be found in Jharkhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh, this belt. And then we have the use, what is the use of the mineral resources that is used? Mostly it is used in automobile and construction, building, applications, etc. And then finally we have the advantage and disadvantage of the particular mineral resource we are talking about. So I'll go through one last question. We have name 2 states where copper is found in India, mention 1 use of it. So we have covered the use, the state, and the advantage and disadvantage of the particular mineral resources. Moving on to our next chapter. The important topics to memorize in the manufacturing industries is the supply of resources to 2 plants that are given to us by the board. We have to study about the Tata Steel and the Rourkela plant. So we have the coal, iron ore, and water supply. These are the 3 points that we have to remember in each of the plants that are mentioned to us. Tata Steel, Rourkela, where does it get its supply from? So there would be districts and states that are provided to us. Coal is found in this state, in this district. Iron ore is found in this state and this district. And water supply is, so which river is the water supply diverted to? You have to memorize this point very well. It was asked in my board exam. And lucky for me, I had studied that section very well because most of my friends are lost around a mark or so due to this question. So let's move on to our final chapter. We have transport. Now the important topic to memorize in transport, to understand in transport is, remember authorities, example NH and border. Now what I mean by NH is National Highway and border roads. Which authority constructs and maintains these structures in our country? Again, I'll repeat, the structures of national highways and border roads. It has also been asked in the specimen paper. If you could just scroll to question number 11. 4th sub-question, we have the B question. Who looks after the construction and maintenance of the following? So if you know the authority of the country that maintains these structures, you would get all in all 2 marks. So that's it. That brings us to the end of the video. I hope you liked and enjoyed this video. I also hope that you would implement these tips and tricks and you would have understood the pattern of the paper quite well. So take care, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.